Hey everyone, welcome to my Christmas story countdown to Christmas. I will be sharing my woke Christmas stories. And my first story is the first part of a Christmas Carol, the woke edition, and the art you will be seeing in this video is done by my friend Milkshake. There will be 5 parts to this first story. So let's begin. First part is Marley's post-life representative. Marley was non-viable to begin with. There's no doubt whatever about that, except for general philosophical questions about the permanence of death and the very real possibilities of reincarnation. The label non-viable is also fairly confining. Yet, as Marley left no heirs or significant others, protests were not forthcoming. With his karma in the condition it was, chances were good that the host body that Marley's spirit might next inhabit would be of the invertebrate type, and until a champion for those specious phyla comes forward, it is unlikely we shall ever hear from or about Marley again. So, for all practical purposes, Marley was as non-viable as a doorknob, unless you happen to be an animist, of course, but enough discretion. Scrooge certainly knew Marley had advanced into a post-life situation. The two had been business partners for many years, in a ruthless capitalistic operation that took advantage of people's caffeine addictions and exploited coffee farmers in developing nations. The business had started with good and generous intentions, and even offered stock options to the coffee farmers at one time. But these efforts had eroded over many years of competition and rapt attention to the bottom line. All that was left of their original egalitarian vision was a string of chrome and marble-filled coffee bars and a relaxed company dress code. While Marley was partly responsible for this reactionary shift, the real architect of this venal situation was his still living partner. Oh, but a tight-fisted hand at the grindstone was Scrooge, a squeezing, wrenching, grasping, scraping, clutching, covetous old sinner. And as you might well imagine, this did nothing for his self-esteem. Oh, how long and wearisome life can be when hampered by a negative self-image. Once upon a time, of all the good days in the year, on Christmas Eve, not to slight the importance of any day held wholly by adherents of any religion or non-religion, or any other day not so designated, Scrooge sat in his warehouse office, poring over the week's spreadsheets. It was cold, bleak, biting weather. The stock exchanges had only just closed, but outside it was quite dark already. The door to Scrooge's office was kept open that he might keep an eye on his employees, of which there was now only one. The rest had been released just the previous week in the latest right sizing of Scrooge and Marley Inc. While these decruits had been released at an inauspicious time of year, Scrooge liked to think he had done them a favor by allowing them to pursue their own entrepreneurial interests. Besides, he thought, the taxes I've paid over the years have made unemployment benefits plenty attractive. These people are practically on easy street already. Through the door, Scrooge could see his lone administrative assistant, Roberto Bob Cratchit, busily inputting sales data. Poor Cratchit could almost see his breath. The temperature in the warehouse was kept so low. Scrooge Lennon led an ascetic lifestyle himself, and expected others to do the same. He believed that excess heat and comfort sapped the human spirit and made the body susceptible to numerous diseases. And while his stated intents were to promote vitality and conserve fossil fuels, in his heart of hearts, Scrooge more greatly relished the monetary savings of such an icy atmosphere. He kept the thermostat under lock and key in his office, so his staff of one was forced to make do with heavy coats, thick socks, and plenty of hot miso soup brought from home. For you see, money was Scrooge's sole interest now and only love. His life had not always been thus. As a youth, he was active in many progressive humanitarian movements, mainly because he felt it was a good way to meet women. I'm just going to give a little thing here that's funny. Women is spelled with a Y instead of an E because they use feminist spellings in these stories. Just thought that was funny to point that out. But he never in his life embraced himself as a worthwhile person, which spelled with a U instead of an L. And soon he began to distrust others as much as he distrusted himself in his insecurity. He found comfort in accumulating wealth, since his money would never break his heart or ask to borrow his car. Such displaced affection would be merely sad in his isolated case, were it not so tragically prevalent in the world at large. "A merry non-sectarian Christmas, Uncle!" cried a cheerful voice. It was Scrooge's nephew Fred, who had managed to sneak up on Scrooge and Cratchit. "Bah!" said Scrooge. "Humbug!" "Christmas a humbug, Uncle?" exclaimed Fred, whose cheerful face was quite ruddy from the cold. "You don't mean that, I am sure." "Yes," said Scrooge, "a humbug," and swatted at his desk with a ledger. When he lifted the book, there sat the pasty remains of a rare Honduran humming cockroach. "Uncle, how cruel!" "We get these frequently with the bean shipments," replied Scrooge. "If I were to leave them alone, our interior environment would be overrun. So save your Rachel Carson act for some place else. Now what's all this hogwash about a Merry Christmas? Mighty presumptuous of you." "Then I amend it to Happy Holidays?" "Still presumptuous." "Greetings of the season?" "Bah!" said Scrooge angrily. "I'm wary of this season and all its forced gaiety. What is this season but the chance to feel another year older, and not any more personally fulfilled? A time to juggle the books for the end of the tax year? An opportunity to be labeled unpatriotic if you don't splurge on enough baubles to buy your way into people's affections? If I could work my wheel, every idiot who spouts a season's greetings would be made to watch the Osmond Family Christmas Special for a solid month and be force-fed 100 McDonald's eggnog shakes." "Uncle, you can't mean that." "I can and I do. Don't denigrate my opinions, nephew. What good has this oppressive holiday ever done you?" "Since you ask," replied Fred, "the holidays give me a chance to keep up appearances and assuage my middle-class guilt, so that I can drop a check in the mail and think I've done more than my share to better the world. It's a time when I'm told that everyone opens their hearts to the good in their fellow persons, when rich and poor alike can drink in its kindness, delaying all out class warfare for another year. So even if the holidays only reward me in a trickle-down economic benefits and a warm fuzzy feeling, I should like to say I'm pretty much in favor of them, generally." "Right on," said Bob Cratchit. "Enough from you," Scrooge warned his staff. "I'm surrounded by the cerebrally undercapitalized. What might have you be, Mary? You're overextended enough." "What right have you to be morose?" retorted his nephew. "Your catalog sales are big enough. I can't believe over to our house tomorrow. My wife and I are having some people over. A little wine and cheese. Strictly casual." "Bah! I'd rather switch to decaf." "We'll be playing categories," coaxed his nephew. "Good afternoon," said Scrooge. "Then I'll just wish you enhanced seasonal benefits and a nurturing new year." "Good afternoon," said Scrooge. His nephew left without an angry word, notwithstanding, and bestowed greetings of the season on Scrooge's assistant, who returned them gratefully. Scrooge's phone rang, and he picked up the receiver to hear a chipper recording voice say, "Happy Holidays! You have been selected to receive a wonderful free gift of a lovely fruitcake, and at the same time help an organization working to better our community. To find out how to take advantage of this exciting offer, please remain on the line." Scrooge slammed down the receiver bitterly. "Humbug!" he muttered, and swatted another roach on his desk. When 5 o'clock finally arrived, Roberto Cratchit cleared off his desk and prepared to leave. Scrooge strode over with a glowering look and said to his sole employee, "You'll want the entire day off tomorrow, I suppose." "We've been through this over and over," said Roberto. "If you really want someone here with you tomorrow, call a temp agent. If you want me here, you'll have to pay triple time for the legal holiday, like my contract says." Scrooge scoffed. Bah! What could be illegal about picking up business in its pocket in such a way? You just be careful to respect your body tomorrow, and don't be hung over when you come in the day after. Not in a mood to argue, Bob agreed to keep his excesses to a moderate level and left the warehouse. Scrooge stayed to work on a few more hours, then turned off his lights and closed up. In the parking lot, he braced himself against the cold and climbed into his banged up, well traveled Volvo sedan. He could certainly have afforded a newer car, but the Volvo's resale value had precipitously sunk, and Scrooge wouldn't part with it for such a small figure. So determined was he to squeeze every last dime of value from the car that he didn't realize that the rear bumper was still attached only by the myriad bumper stickers that adorned it. Bumper stickers for numerous worthy causes that were sadly stuck in muse testimony to the man's youthful idolism. Scrooge soon reached his home, which stood at the far end of a nearly vacant condominium complex of renovated industrial buildings. He parked the Volvo near the main entrance and hurriedly opened the courtyard gate. Crossing the grim, unadorned cloister to his own door, he saw none of his neighbors, which suited him perfectly. Yet somehow he didn't feel alone. He unlocked the front door, climbed the stairs, and entered his condo on the third floor. If this had ever been a welcoming domain, there was no trace of it now. The lights were kept perpetually dim, and to call the furnishings Spartan would have been an insult to the inhabitants of that noble and ancient land. Scrooge thought that this sparseness imparted a certain air of oriental spirituality to the place, but to a visitor, if Scrooge ever had one, it merely looked cheap and underfurnished. From his entryway he noticed that for the first time in memory the message light on his answering machine was blinking. Assuming it was another phone solicitation, he thought of ignoring it, yet the insistent red flashes caused him unease. With a hesitant motion, he pushed the playback button and heard what he thought was the voice of his terminally inconvenienced partner, Jacob Marley, in a mournful annotation. Scrooge! Beep! Scrooge slapped at the machine, annoyed by the seeming prank. "Bah!" he said. "I don't believe it," and went to the kitchen. Recently he had read about the health benefits of a strict diet of watery gruel, and he had adopted this bleak and frugal regimen. He served up a bowl of the gruel, unheated of course, took it to the living room, and settled into a cushion on the floor to eat. But no sooner had he done so than he heard an unearthly clattering in the courtyard. Scrooge stopped eating and listened. A sound arose like chains and heavy equipment being dragged over the trash cans. He made a mental note to talk to the condo board about every security and double bolted his door. Scrooge jumped with a start at the next crash, which sounded like the door to his building being kicked in. He heard the clamor more loudly on the floors below, then coming up the stairs, then coming straight for his door. "I still don't believe it," attested Scrooge, but the blood drained from his face when the source of the noise pushed itself through his door. It was the post-life representative of Jacob Marley. The spirit was dressed in the jogging suit and expensive sneakers Marley favored in life, and now worn and tattered from the grave. Around its head it wore a sweatband, but curiously under its chin rather than across its brow. The horrible clanking sounds Scrooge had heard came from a chain it carried that was fastened around its waist. The chain was made, Scrooge noticed, of barbells, abdominal exercisers, and random parts from broken Soloflex systems. "Still working to feel the burn, eh, Jacob?" joked Scrooge uneasily. "You don't believe me?" asked the spectral visitor. Scrooge said, "Usually I have never questioned another person's claims of spirituality, but I'm sorry. Most people aren't so hammy about it." He tried to sound brave, but wasn't very convincing. "Why do you doubt your senses?" it asked. "So now you're saying I should believe my senses?" asked a quick-thinking Scrooge, who often resorted to a double talk in sticky situations. "How limiting! Since when did Jacob Marley become a mere rationalist? Besides, if I were to believe my senses, it would look like I'm being haunted by the ghost of Jack LaLanne." At this, the spirit raised a frightful cry and shook its chains with such a dismal and appalling noise that Scrooge clung tightly to his cushion in fear and fell over like a child's toy. But how much greater was the horror when the phantom removed the sweatband from around its head. Its jaw abruptly fell open, and its teeth dropped out. Scrooge got up on his knees, trembling. "Jacob, please," he begged. "Why have you come here? To show me false teeth?" "That's just a start," said the non-corporeal visitor through its gums. "Do you know what else was washed about me? Pectoral implants, calf implants, a hair weave, plastic surgery upon plastic surgery, even tinted contact lenses. Now in death I cannot tell which parts of me were original and which were paid for by installment. And because of this falsity, I am condemned to wander the world and witness those things which are genuine and true, but in which I cannot share." Again, the ghost let out a terrible cry. "I can never again visit Southern California." Scrooge trembled and asked why he was fettered. "I wear the chain I forged in life," was the reply. "Each time I concentrate on the prefabricated and supernatural instead of the good and true. I added another link to it. Do you realize the length of your own chain? It was this long 7 years ago, and you have been working hard at it since." "Have you no comfort to give me?" asked Scrooge. "None. I know of your greed and your dual-visaged dealings. You value profits more than people, all in the name of some claptrap about the wisdom of the market, and a rising tide lifting all boats. Such vanity! You know nothing about genuine worth, about what is truly valuable. Unless you mend your ways, you will receive a punishment worse than mine. My time here is nearly gone. I'm here to warn you that you still have a chance to escape my fate." "You were always a good friend to me, Jacob," said Scrooge. "A good and dear friend, who knew me better than I knew myself. May I take this opportunity to thank you for—" "Enough of your sucking up!" the inspector interrupted. "You can't talk your way out of this. You will be haunted this night by 3 extra-dimensional intercessors." "Angels?" asked Scrooge brightly. "Nothing so trendy. Expect the first when the clock strikes 1." "Can't I take them all at once," hinted Scrooge, "and get it over with?" "They are individual spirits," answered Marley Shade, "each with different needs that must be respected. You'll do well to remember that." When it had said these words, the spirit picked up its teeth and bound its head again. It walked backward from Scrooge, and at every step Marley's post-life representative took, the window raised itself a little and was soon completely open. The spirit then floated out into the dark night with a mournful howl, and the window slammed fast. Scrooge examined his door, which was still double-bolted. He tried to say "humbug," but found himself vocally incapacitated. Whether it was the ordeal he had just experienced, or the effect of the white noise machine in the background, he crawled to his tatami mat in the bedroom and immediately fell asleep. And tomorrow we will continue A Woke Christmas Carol.